Hey guys, it's towniesimbuilds here, and welcome back to another bite-sized speed build. So as you can tell from the title, we are working on some industrial apartments today, and this is currently in the world of San Myshuno. Now with this design, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I probably went through a good 4 or 5 variations until I started getting the aesthetic just right. So these are definitely more industrial, probably would say they're also more on the contemporary side as well. And honestly, I want to see if I could create some kind of apartment, condo, or townhouse within the tiny home limits. So yes, it was super challenging. I had to sort of dance around the Sims 4 rules a little bit. But yes, here we are. I am trying to create an alternative option for apartment living within this world. And I believe when I started this project, I did try this in the world of 𝗪𝗏𝗡𝗚, but unfortunately, it just wasn't working out. So I did transfer to San Myshuno. Now, as you guys may have seen, I've done a lot of challenges in the apartments themselves, and I do think they are quite fun to live in. But in terms of building your own apartment in The Sims 4, I don't think we have anything that allows us to do so in the game, especially without mods. So when I was building this, I thought, hey, you know, if this is a tiny home, I believe this one is in the tier 1? Perhaps tier 1 or tier 3, I never remember, but this is within the 100 tile limit. But anyways, as you guys know, there is a discount with living in a tiny house, which this technically is. I managed to work around the restrictions and keep this within the limit. So if you guys have different Sims that are living together here, you know, maybe you have 3 different smaller families living in each one, hopefully that does reduce the bills quite a bit. Because if you try to create sort of a regular residential lot and you just pile families in this very large house, the bills are going to be insane, especially if you're just trying to use one household or even just one Sim. But anyways, at this point, you get to see most of the shell complete. I'm just going in with some of the base game shrubbery there. And I did make use out of the city living pillars, trying to create sort of a little roof, sort of a trellis effect, if you will. Like I said, this is definitely more industrial, so I went with more of a cement with a white brick combo that you can see there. And then I do use the siding, I believe, from the Get Together pack. Now, I will say I think this is close to the final result in terms of the outside, but I do remember that I go back and switch out some of the, I believe, the wallpaper on the 3rd floor. I'm trying to add in some colors for you guys, but that does come out a little later. Anyways, as you can see, each of the townhouses actually has a little semi-private backyard. It does overlook the ocean in San Myshuno, yes, almost forgot the name, but it also provides another method or area of entry for your Sims, so I thought it was a really cool space. As you guys know, tiny homes, tiny houses, especially a tiny house apartment like this, there was just such a very tight limit on space, so ultimately I thought the backyards probably could be a good solution to that. Otherwise, if you go into the apartments themselves, you just have a basic kitchen, dining room area, bathroom, and of course, the bed space. Anyways, you guys saw I did put in some debug cars there, so all very different, but each fitting to each of the different households, and then just going in with some more landscaping. I placed some base game bamboo, which I hardly ever use, but I thought it looked really cool in this design. So very contemporary, it's very minimalistic, I guess I would say. I would normally use the word modern, but I think a lot of these words get thrown around a lot, so this is definitely more contemporary. And yeah, I think this could be a really cool place for your Sims to live. Now, I don't know about you guys, whenever I try to do something more industrial or a little bit more minimalist, I gotta put plants in there. I just have to put plants everywhere, so I'm using some of the objects from the Get Together pack, just trying to give a little bit of Mother Nature's touch, primarily to the big concrete slabs. And at this point, we are going in and designing the apartments, or condos, or townhouses, whatever you prefer to call them. That is what they are. Yes, separate living compartments. We're gonna go with that. But anyways, I was thinking realistically, I tried to think realistically about this build. And for me, if this lot was created by a particular builder, I imagine that most of the fixtures inside would be fairly similar. So you will see that the kitchens are placed in the same spots. Most of the appliances and layout are more or less the same. And that does go for the bathroom area as well. So I try to keep that detail. These don't look like... Yeah, I believe the HOA of this establishment probably wouldn't allow for a lot of changes to the units themselves. So I'm going to go with that story. I'm going to go with that aspect of realism there. But each of the apartments or each of the units themselves do have a slightly different theme. And if you guys have played with the world of San Myshuno, you will know that the big selling point of this city is multiculturalism. So even though these apartments are very hyper-contemporary and minimalist, I did want to add some subtle cultural influences in each one. So this first unit is definitely themed more so around Snowy Escape, Mount Komorebi. Some of the Japanese-inspired objects are used here, so you will see the paintings on the wall. I do use the little, I guess I would say dim sum or takeout posters that are along the wall as well. So maybe the sim here has a favorite food spot that they go out to eat with their friends. And then I use this base game bed as well, which I honestly really love. It does have a very abstract look to it, a little bit of a Zen influence, if that makes any sense. And then just going in here and completing the balcony area. It's not quite a loft. It's not quite a loft, obviously, but it does have a little bit of an overlook down into the kitchen and dining room area. Now, we do, of course, use a lot of tiny living because space was limited, you guys. So the dressers are going to be a little bit rinse and repeat, and I do think I use this TV unit in another unit as well. So I tried to kind of stagger them so there wasn't a clear repetition of the same objects. But you know what, you guys, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And if it means for using the same things here and there, you know, gotta cut us builders some slack. Cut yourself some slack if you have to do the same thing. Anyways, here is the infamous 3x1 bathroom that I love using. It is made possible by Snowy Escape, and I do believe there are other shower units that allow for this particular arrangement. So the shower goes in the middle, we have the toilet to the left and the sink to the right, and it is completely functional. Anyways, just going in now and adding some few touches. I did grab the scroll painting from City Living there, and just grabbing the fur rug from the Snowy Escape pack as well, just to complete the look. I did want to make sure that there were plenty of windows in this space. I do think the windows help to make the space, I guess I would say, a little larger, at least optically. It's a little bit of a visual trick. I do know that mirrors are usually a good way to do so, both in real life and also in The Sims. Now for this unit, we're obviously moving on to the next apartment or condo, if you will. And I would say this unit has more of a southwestern influence. So it is a little bit more ambiguous. You could take this along the route of Native American southwestern culture, or perhaps even Latin culture with a lot of the objects used in this room. Surprisingly enough, most of them were from base game. I do believe there is quite a big set of these objects that do work quite well together. And this does include the two base game chairs that I use that do have a sort of textile motif on them. And I think at some point I do add two cacti. I think that's the way to say it. So two cacti are there. And then again, another textile inspired painting on the wall as well. It's either a painting or a piece of fabric. I'm not quite sure, but I do think it went well with this space in particular. So again, like I said, very similar. It's a little bit rinse and repeat with the layout, but I did try to stick with my own HOA standards, if you will, if you can even call it that. Every single unit does have a small dining space, so it's one little teeny tiny table with two chairs. So unfortunately, I think these apartments can only hold probably 2 Sims each, which I don't think is too bad. Perhaps this is great for a young couple or even loner Sims who just want a really nice space to, yeah, eat, sleep, maybe work, maybe just chill and hang out before they go into the city area. But anyways, just going in and adding some final touches. I do use the little poof from the Tiny Living pack. Unfortunately, like I always say, it's not a true beanbag, but I do think it worked with a motif in this room, and I did put some books there as well. Just finishing off the bedroom space now. So the Tiny Living rug went perfectly with the whole woven sort of textile element, if you will. and then the base game bed as well. There's kind of a whole set of objects in base game that I believe is roughly mission themed, so there is a sort of subtle Southwest influence in them that did work well here. I did put an image of the Grand Canyon, or I guess what Sims could call the Grand Canyon, and then also some family portraits there as well. Now moving on to the very last condo or apartment or townhouse, still undecided on the word. This one I struggled with, honestly. I think originally I wanted to do more of a, I would say, Middle Eastern or Indian theme with this room, but unfortunately I'm just not very comfortable with representing that culture. I just don't know a lot about it, and I'm not really sure what objects to combine, I guess. I didn't know what the right selection was. So with this room, I went for more of a Caribbean theme, so it's definitely more colorful. I did want to include more foliage, tropical objects, and just a vibrant palette overall. So putting in a lot of cool stuff. I love the canopy bed from the City Living pack. We do have the tropical leaves or fronds from the Tiny Living pack, and then also the hanging plant from the Tiny Living pack as well. I did also include this very little hand sculpture there because I have been to many parts of the Caribbean multiple times, and a lot of local artisans do really great work in terms of sculptures, so I did want to pay a little bit of an homage to that. Anyways, we are back down in the kitchen area, and just again, keeping with a lot of the same setup, I do swap out the fridges in each one, but I do believe the sink area and the stove are more or less the same in each of the units. So like I said, if I was going for more of a Caribbean or tropical influence, trying to situate some clutter there, which is very cumbersome with counters and very cumbersome if you don't have mods. But I did manage to fit a base game planter there with some utensils. And then I did find this very interesting piece from City Living, and I don't really know what culture it's trying to emulate, but usually Caribbean artwork is very vibrantly painted, it's very colorful. And in terms of the paintings along the stairwell, I really did enjoy this piece as well. I did see that there were a lot of ethnicities and cultures represented within this particular swatch, including some Afro-Caribbean individuals and possibly some Latin or native peoples in there as well. So I did think it was a good fit. But anyways, we're zooming back out to the outside area, and just like I promised, I do go back and add in a little bit of color on each of these different units. It's honestly just the third floor that does get swapped out in terms of the wallpaper, and I do use the base game siding in its place. We're now finishing off the private or semi-private backyard spaces. And for me, this one was really hard to do. I kind of used a half wall here and tried to make use out of some kind of patio door. So I'm not really sure how well it worked. I do start with the door from the Snowy Escape pack, but then I do think I go back to base game for that option. The thing I really did enjoy about this build is the debug stones. So these are all from base game, and it just fit with the whole contemporary vibe. It felt very clean and crisp, like something you would see in a city. And now finally going to the night view to add some proper lighting, because at night this whole complex was super dark. So I do use a lot of base game lights for the outdoors, and you did see those wall sconces as well. They're actually my favorite. The wall sconces were great. They're just very sleek and simple, and they just work with a lot of builds. Not to mention they do have a very sort of warm glow, kind of like a mixture of a fluorescent and incandescent light bulb. So hopefully that makes sense, but we're switching back to the daytime now. Because this is industrial, I did want something on the outside to be more indicative of that. So I do use some of the City Living pipes. So I think originally I tried to situate them roughly where the kitchen and or bathroom areas were. But honestly, you guys, I think the positioning of them might be a little tiny bit arbitrary, but yeah, did the best I could. But I did like how they looked on this build. I also go back in and use the mailboxes, I believe, from Snowy Escape there. And now we're finally back and adding in the screen doors, patio doors. Again, feel free to call them what you like, but they do mirror the doors to the units themselves. Apart from this, I do try to add in a few other little areas here and there. So these are separate from the units, but they do blend into the world itself. You will see a lot of the sidewalk areas kind of blend into the lot itself. So you see this little sitting area here with a lot of the overgrown ivy. There is also the other side. I don't know if I added in... Yeah, I don't think I added them in just yet, but I will also put a recycling area. And I think that was made possible by the Snowy Escape pack. So it will be a little farther back, I believe next to one of the units. Here we go. Perfect. Perfect timing. Here it is, you guys. Never use these objects, but I think they work great. And then I just go ahead and copy and paste a bench there. Anyways, we are moving to the outside now, and I really wanted to give a little bit more personality to each of these units. So you will see some different activities. For this unit, I made more of a family cookout type of space. So we do have the, I believe it's the base game barbecue set there with a little table to prepare the food. And then using a combination of different things, some tiny living with some city living for the other chairs and tables there. And then I believe for this unit, I created a musical performance spot. So I did use the umbrella, I believe from Get Together, trying to put together some kind of seating area, trying to make things match a little bit. But you will have a little sitting area towards the left, right? I don't know. Whatever view we're looking at. I do substitute the base game chairs for the cushions from City Living. And then on this side, we will have the performer's stage. So originally, I tried using this object from City Living, but I thought it was a little bit too clunky. I didn't know if the rain was going to damage it in game. So I just used a base game rug, a stool, and also a guitar. So should be fine. It should be safe from the rain itself, but you're more than welcome to bring the guitar inside. And then for the last room, or for the last unit, I should say, this area is sort of a combination of a small garden and also an artist spot. So I do use the plants from Snowy Escape, a few planter boxes from base game, and then the, what is it called? Pitchfork, yes. Pitchfork object from Get Together. There we go. I'm forgetting the names, you guys. But anyways, that's the painter spot there using the tarp and the paint object from City Living. And then I do believe I add in one little seating area here. So I imagine this would be where the artist is situating their subjects if they have another roommate or a significant other that would like to pose for the painting. And that pretty much wraps up that spot. I think the last part of this build is just fixing up the right side of the lot itself. Originally, I did not have this very large trellis design, so I do go back, I do bring those pillars in once more, and I recreate the trellis style roof using just the base game fence and the base game siding once more. So that pretty much clears up that spot, and I do go in and use more of these lovely debug stone stepping stones, I guess you can call them. Which I think worked really great here. So I'm really glad I did go back and fix that, so it did feel like the rest of the build was pretty cohesive. Alright guys, and that is a wrap on the industrial apartments, condos, or townhouses of San Myshuno. I honestly had a lot of fun doing this and working within the tiny house limits, and hopefully this does provide some kind of alternative to the traditional apartments in the game itself. Just like always, this is still a no CC, no mod limited pack build, and will be available on the Sims 4 gallery as well. I'll leave you guys now with the final lot specs and the cinematic shots, so you can see how everything turned out in the end. Just like always, this has been 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏